cause everything around me green. Get the money, dollar bill, yo.
We specifically actually did a feature freeze a couple months ago so that we could build into this milestone. And so you guys are still playing and we really appreciate it. That's really, really cool. I'm glad that y'all are still engaged. Let me just say, I said this on Twitter this morning and I'll say it again. If you liked what we had before, you are going to love what we have coming in this next milestone.
Definitely. And it was funny because I was just late night watching Twitch last night and I found somebody who was streaming Crowfall. And he was just having a good time, just farming the war tribes. And I was like, this is great.
That build that is up on live, though, right now, I think is from the end of summer. It has been a long time since we've done an update. And that doesn't mean we haven't been busy. We've been very, very busy. And we've been just adding crazy stuff to the game. And you're going to get to see all of that stuff coming very, very soon. Let me start with a question that I get asked all the time, which is, how are you guys going to get this game done? Like we set out to make an audacious, really, really big game that was very much unlike anything else that was out there. And you're starting to see the elements of that now, right? We've got the procedural worlds in, which means that our worlds are unique. We've got the campaigns that actually come to an end. I mean, there's a host. We've got characters can move between them. We've got import and export working. We've got classes and races now, which we didn't even originally expect to have. We've got disciplines, major, minor, exploration. We've got passive training. We've got full crafting to a deeper degree than practically any MMO out there. In every area, right, we've been checking these boxes. This next milestone that's coming out is the one that really sees it all the way through. It sees the vision all the way through. So the challenge, of course, is the amount of money that you can raise. I don't even want to know why you're laughing, Val. I don't want to know. Okay, what is it?
Look at that Clark Kent curl.
I gotta have my curl. I've had this since the beginning. Look at the old videos.
My goodness.
Sorry, I'm doing my job. I can't help it if they say funny stuff in the chat.
Okay,
keep going.
So the big question, of course, is, and has been from the beginning, was this: how are you guys going to actually build? That's a massive game, right? And when we said in Kickstarter, I think it was like our second question in FAQ is, are you really going to fund this with our crowdfunding money? And the answer was always no. We're going to use some of that, but that's proof of market as much as anything else. We wanted backers to come in because backers were showing, hey, there's a real market. There's an audience that wants what we're building, and that's only the money that we're going to, we're taking a little money from you. We're taking a lot more money from investors. That's how we're actually going to fund it. My general rule of thumb is I think that you can raise about 20% through crowdfunding of whatever vision you pitch at the best.
Okay.
So if you pitch a $100,000 game, you can maybe crowdfund for 20 grand. If you pitch a $10 million game, you can maybe pitch for $2 million. We pitched a big game, and we've actually, I think we're somewhere between $5.5 and $6 million of crowdfunding, which is amazing, and you guys are awesome. I mean, that is a staggering amount. Unfortunately, my vision for this game is a much more staggering amount, and it always has been. So what we said was in the very beginning, kind of trust us. We know what we're doing. Gordon and I have been down this road many times, and we're going to do, we know how to raise money for these games, and we know how to do it in a way that we're going to continue to be true to our vision. We're not going to go sell with the publisher who's going to come in and then change the vision. And you can see that we've done that. So all of this, to a long story short, is at the tail end of last year, when we started to gear up to launching this thing, we started talking about what our needs were to really not just kind of limp across the finish line, but to actually get the resources in that we needed so that we can have the people. Because the thing about MMOs is you actually scale up your team at launch. You don't scale down, because now you have to hire operations people and customer service people, and you need to be planning on your content for the first 6 months after launch, right? Somebody is calling me. I think it's probably somebody on the stream is trying to. So what we did at the end of last year is Gordon and I sat down, we talked about our needs, and we decided to go out and do our final round of fundraising to launch this game. I'm giving you guys a sneak peek to the fact that it's coming. I'm not going to tell you the amount. That's going to come out very soon. But I will say that the round is done. The fundraising was completed by the end of the year, and it is the largest raise we have ever done by a significant margin. And since we had a raise in the past, I think about a year ago, we announced it was $6 million. It is a significant chunk. So what this means to you guys is that we're going to be able to bring this game in, and we're going to be able to get the level of polish that we want out of it, which is really fantastic news. It means that we'll have the money to launch it in the US and in Europe. We're going to have the money that we need to actually market it so that people outside of our core, we love you guys, but we would like to get some other players in too, so we can actually reach them. So anyways, it's super exciting for us as a company. It's always nice because it also made it very, very clear to everybody internally that we're serious about getting this thing shipped. The goal was never to be in an endless cycle of crowdfunding, because that actually, frankly, wouldn't have even worked. We didn't make enough money off crowdfunding to even come close to paying for our monthly expenses. So the end is now in sight, and that's coming right around the corner, which is really, really, really cool. And now we have all the resources that we need to do it. So, and we will be doing an announcement. I'm sure there'll be a press release coming out that actually gives more details about that. But super excited. I'm excited about that, and because I'm excited about it, you guys should be too.
I think everybody's excited about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it means more and better, and it's going to be better.
And I can pay people. I can keep people paid. I keep people getting paid.
Colster,
That's great.
in line with this discussion,
Sure.
Colster asked, is this funding for the soft launch or the launch?
So this is actually launch funding. This is actually going to get us not just through soft launch, but actually it covers the period of time that I always thought we would need in between the soft launch and the testing before we spend that marketing budget. So it actually does cover both. It also covers the operational infrastructure. It's not chump change. it's a non-trivial deal. So which is great. It's also great because it shows that our investors have continued faith in our team and in what we're building and in our market, and it shows that we're going to be able to come out and make this thing really great. I know that it's taken a lot longer than any of us would have liked, and I want to thank you guys again for your patience. At the end of the day, the answer to it not taking longer has always been, well, then just ship whatever you got. Call it, don't get all the things you want, don't go back and polish XYZ system because you just ran out of time. Ship it, and we've always said we didn't want to do that. And so now we're in the position where we don't have to, so which is really, really great. So I will say, and you heard it here first, if you've got friends who have been on the fence about, oh, I guess I should go and register at crowfall.com, you might want to tell them to go ahead and do that, because at some point here, the order of events is we are still working on this milestone. We will wrap it up shortly. I'm going to use very careful words here. At that point, we go into bug fixing and polish, and we'll spend some period of time doing bug fixing and polish before we're ready to put it in front of you guys. At that point, effectively, we call it alpha. Whether it's when it goes to test or when it goes to live, don't know, but we will call it alpha. The trigger for beta is actually when we start to invite people who have registered at crowfall.com to come in and play.
Right.
And we will invite them in waves. The waves will probably start at like a wave of 1,000, and it'll be 3,000, it'll be 5. We've got to get through 350 or something like that 1,000, so there's a lot to get through. But we haven't shut the sign-offs off yet, so if you do want to get in before launch and check it out, or you've got a buddy who wants to, I would definitely suggest you go ahead and go register. Is that okay, Cece? Is it okay that I'm saying that?
Perfect.
All right. Anyway, very exciting time for us. I'm really glad to be able to come back and tell you guys that that's done. Gordon and I, of course, have been working on this for the last 6 months, but I hadn't had it to a point where I felt I wanted it done and money in the bank before I came and announced it. So we announced it to the team already, but now I'm happy to be able to announce it to you guys as well. So there you go.
There you go.
So awesome. So you want to talk about talk about the next milestone that's coming?
Would that be the city building? Do you want to talk about that?
There's a handful. So let in this next milestone that's coming, there are kind of 3 pillars and then a whole bunch of other stuff that is coming. So we'll go through those 3 pillars a little bit, but I will say I'm still going to be a little bit cards close to the chest on this until we're ready to actually kind of formally unveil these systems, and we're not quite there yet. But the major pillars are city building, dregs, which is guild versus guild support, and what's my last one? City buildings and dregs and oh yes, of course, the strategy game.
Strategy game.
The divine favor system, right? Which is the now the gods, the Crowfall gods, which we actually have a very, very robust pantheon of gods. they are now going to have an active participation in the game world itself, in the campaign.
Right.
So you are actually going to be doing things to win the campaign beyond just what we had before, which capture. You're going to have to please the gods as alternate vectors to try and win the campaign, which is really, really, really cool.
Okay, so we have some new people who don't understand what you mean by city building.
Cool.
So can you kind
All
of
right.
give like a just quick and dirty?
Yeah, so historically in our game so far, the name of the game in the campaign was for factions, so not even guilds, but just a pre-built, you choose one of 3 factions, order, balance, or chaos, and you would go out and you would have to capture a pre-existing fort or keep.
Yep.
And then you hold that, and in doing that, you're gaining victory points. And by the end of the campaign, whichever faction had the most victory points wins the campaign, and they get the reward. So pretty straightforward, not actually that different than some of the things that you can get out there from other games. The fact that it comes to an actual close and it plays out over a series of spring, summer, fall, winter, that's different and that's unique. And the fact that there's a point scoring structure and at the end one team wins, that's unique. But the actual mechanics of what you were doing on a moment-by-moment basis in the game, not particularly unique, right?
Right, and the choices you had in the city or the keep.
Oh, there
really
really weren't any, right?
Right.
So
we
if
put a couple things in there for you, like crafting stations and some guards.
Yeah, but basically, and any fort or keep that I captured was effectively the same as any others. There might be slight differences in terms of proximity to other things in our large, multi-world maps, right? But otherwise, they were pretty much the same. So in this next version with city building, that is no longer going to be the case.
Right.
We're handing the control of what you build over to the players, and on top of that, we are adding a giant host of things that you can build that make game differences. And so we haven't gotten into the details of that yet. But if I choose to build an armory versus I choose to build I'm trying to not give anything away. If I choose to build an armory versus a guard tower versus a baking shop or whatever.
Okay.
I'm using not real examples because I don't want CC to get mad at me for ruining the big reveal. When we reveal all the buildings and other things, beyond just buildings, there's other stuff you can build as well. So we're putting all the control of that in the hands of the players. We're also breaking that faction thing down so that you are no longer grouped with a bunch of internet randos that you've never met before, who you never invited in your group. You're in a group with the exact set of internet randos that you call your guildmates. So that's a totally different mechanic, which is really cool. So now this is actually the first time I think the game will start to feel like Shadowbane, frankly, which for those of you who don't know was the first game I ever worked on was Shadowbane. I was a creative director on that. And Shadowbane, for all of its flaws, is still unmatched in some of these areas that we're talking about, which is guild identity, having guild goals that no other game comes close to matching, other than like Eve potentially, and then customization in universe, right? So what we're talking about now is the original promise we have of a vast universe where player choices matter is finally happening in this build. So that's really, really cool. And then after that, once this one's out, we're going to polish the hell out of it and we're going to ship it. And then we're going to spend the next 10 years adding more cool stuff to it once we're out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan, right?
That's the plan.
And I'm really excited about the city building. I mean, it was funny because I was commenting yesterday. It's like, are the caravans going to cause so much PvP that no one's going to get anything built?
It's interesting, yeah.
Because
that is my biggest concern, actually, is that so much has changed that we may be underestimating the amount of design polish, not system polish, but just design polish. Like, what are the spawn rates of the caravans? Like, how quickly can you go refill a caravan?
Yeah, we have a calculator, and it assumes that, hey, there's this many coming into the world, and 5 of them are being delivered every 20 minutes or whatever.
For sure.
But that doesn't account for the fact that you're going to be there basically running screen and killing me and or killing the pigs.
Yeah.
And then I have to start over again.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
And since they're coming from...
I'll give one small example as a depth chart, just to give you the kind of things that this system can do, because it's really cool, is there is a particular thing that you can build in your city that will speed up the speed of your caravans, but only on roads. Like, that's pretty cool, right? Because now it's a choice. Do I take my caravan down the road and take advantage of that speed bonus, or do I off-road it? I'm more likely to be ambushed on the road.
Right.
But I'm also, if I'm off-road, I'm more likely to have to take a lot more time to get where I'm going. So that's just one example. There are dozens of examples like that, probably dozens of examples like that, because they're all interlocked.
Valerie's like, how many refineries do we want to put in the map? I said, put one. And we'll see what it turns into.
We told them that refineries was coming in
yes,
this version?
we did.
We did? Okay, great.
We did.
So, hey, refineries is coming in this version. Yeah.
And actually,
sure.
I demoed that to everyone on Monday. You actually remember turning in the, taking a material and turning it into the stack of 200
and by the way, this was an idea that was brought up by you guys, and it was brought up at least a year, 2 years ago, which was, can we have some alternate mechanics of getting harvestables to be able to give to our crafters so that we can outfit our troops? And now that we have a caravan loop, it finally makes sense to say, yeah, we will put that in. We'll put that as an alternate. So you go to a quarry and you get a green block of marble. And now you can take it back to your city and you can use it to build your walls or build some of these buildings or build the other things we're talking about. Or you can instead take it to a refinery and chop it up and it'll turn into a stack of, I don't know how many.
Right now it's 200.
200 green marble, which is really, really cool.
Yep.
So,
and I even added some goodies in there for the top end because there is a progression there. There is stats that feed into it. The amount of materials you get when you turn in a pig is based on a player stat. And you saw gems come out of that.
Yep, I did. I
the
saw,
big block of gems.
You got gems that we can carve up. So,
and it has all of those advanced resources, and it's I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
So okay, so I talked about those are our big three pillars: divine favor, city building, guild versus guild. Outside of that, there's like a dozen smaller pillars that are not the big ticket items, but they're significant. Like they're huge. You've done a lot of work on crafting. We've done a lot of work on UI. So some of the new UI elements look amazing.
The UI is amazing. Yeah.
The other one is passive training, right? You've done a fair amount of polish on the passive training system.
Yeah, Mark and I went back and we did a good amount of polish on the skill system.
Yep.
The talent system as a template got its first polish pass because the version that they have out right now is 1.0.
Yep.
Now, what that means is we didn't change a lot of what the skill or the talent boxes did, but we changed the template of the tree. Like how many points it takes you to get to a certain
And
part.
you eliminated some trees and things like that completely, right? There were some skills that just, you were like, this didn't make sense, let's just get rid of it. You moved some recipes around as well.
Oh yeah, recipes definitely. that was my Christmas break was basically giving meaning to the major crafting disciplines.
Yeah.
And creating a sub-minor specialization.
Oh right, you even created promotion classes now for the disciplines. I saw that. That was actually really cool.
Yeah.
It's funny because I've been bugging Blair forever that logically it seemed to me like it sucks that blacksmithing is enough to give you armors and weapons. We should break those into two specialties, right? And his response was, well, if we do that, then it's just the people are going to be pissed because they have to pick one or the other and they want to actually be able to do both. So what he ended up doing was now we have a branching structure where you can do blacksmithing, and from that you can then specialize in one or the other.
Correct.
Which is really cool. So there's a whole bunch of stuff like that that hasn't even bubbled to the surface because it's kind of dwarfed by the big three.
Yeah, the back-end systems work is going to make the game feel significantly more like a game.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, and there's going to be a lot of our early feedback has been, believe it or not, players want more choice.
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
Right? And what we've done is we in the 1.0 versions of most systems, we've just given you the ability to do everything.
Yeah.
And in this pass, we took away a lot of those choices in a sense that you don't have as many points in a lot of systems to spend.
Right. Well,
which creates more
choices. Yeah, you're forcing choices by not giving you access to everything.
Correct.
The other thing is, so if you look back at the other milestone, it's a great example of that. Like if I was trying to win a campaign, like the one that just ended, right? If I was trying to win that, what did I do in the game? I kind of come in and my options are siege stuff, defend stuff, or kind of roaming bands of thugs looking for other people who are out doing stuff. That was most of the activity. Now, with caravans coming online and city building coming online, all of a sudden it's a explosion of new activities that I can get into, right? Because there's any number of ways for me to interface with those systems. So again, it's all about strategy. And the divine favor system all of a sudden is going to give me very direct activities that I can do that are tangential that'll also help to that end as well.
Correct.
So yeah, it's really, really cool. So on the passive training, did you have something you wanted to show on it?
Yeah, we can show the, let's go to, Emily can take us to the passive trees. Now, there was something that you had, I'd shown, this was probably maybe even 2 years ago, which was the radial design.
Yes, yeah.
Right? And you were like, hey, wouldn't it be great if they were all radial design? And I'm like, oh my God, you know how much work that is.
And I do, and I don't care.
And so
it's not my work, it's your work.
It definitely took carving out some time over the past couple weeks and on weekends and stuff to actually, this is the new exploration basics tree. I love the radial design. We now have a theme where if it's a skill tree, which is your account level training that everyone has access to, it is a radial design, and you start in the center and you work your way out into the branches that you want to. If it is a talent tree, it flows from left to right.
Yeah, and I like that. I did like that too. Is we have talent trees now and passive training trees, and that was causing confusion, right?
Correct.
So one thing that's nice is here at a glance, not only does the UI reinforce it, but also the structure of the tree reinforces it. They're not the same thing.
Correct. They're very different systems, so you can't. There's no way to get confused. And also, I think aesthetically, the radial design actually looks a little better.
Yeah.
That's just a personal aside. Could you go another slide, Emily? So that was the explorations. This is the new combat basics.
Yeah, so they're not all the same. Also.
And they're not all the same.
That's kind of interesting.
So when you look at it,
different formats.
Exactly, and you'll notice that little dangling box, the mastery box over on the right. I'll show you at the end of this.
The button, the little sword button over there.
That little sword button.
There you go. You said box, so I wanted to make it clear to our viewing audience
that is
that you know the difference between a box and a button.
Yeah. So let's go to the next one, please.
At least 50% of the time.
So this is the crafting basics one. You'll notice that, again, they're all radial. They all flow outwards. And it should be fairly self-evident what you need to do here. Let's go to the next one. So one of the things we also started to do is we also started to integrate this thing that we have called traits coming online.
Yes, that's another minor pillar, but it's really, really cool.
And that is how you equip stuff in the game. Prior to this, a lot of our equipment
Well, it's a bunch more than that. It's all sorts of things, but it is also used as a proficiency system, right?
Right.
So
you basically, you look at a set of plate armor, and it would say knight or cleric or something like that on that. And that's not true anymore because we have in the talent system 3 specialization promotion classes. For each of the classes, not all of them get plate. For example, the knight, their very top specialization, which happens to be swordsman, doesn't get plate armor. They get mail, and that's just the way they are. They sacrifice some of their defensive for damage capabilities. So we needed to go away from that, and we went more to a proficiency system where if you have the trait that lets you do something, then you can equip that
So
thing.
if you have plate mail proficiency, now you can wear plate.
Exactly.
If you have one-handed sword proficiency, now you can use one-handed sword.
And in this case, if you have swift saddle proficiency, you can equip a swift mount. Okay, next
Pretty
slide.
cool. And then so we're wrapping this back in and roping it out through the discipline system as well, so that if you want to be able to get some of these proficiencies that normally are not available to your class or your promotion, there are some opportunities for you to take those things. I use 5th edition D&D as my example internally all the time as their feats system. It's a way that I can basically give up some of my core power but get more breadth. I can actually go and invest in other kind of tangential things. That, to me, that's what, I mean, Shadowbane, I will say on this one, Shadowbane did a really good job of having an incredibly broad tree of options for character building. And what that does is it leads to a high degree of replayability. Right. It also means that we get away from the build of the month club where everybody goes and does exactly the same thing, because instead, you know, that build did work pretty well in that situation, but somebody else found another one, and now it crushes that one.
Right.
So that's the kind of replayability that I want to see.
Could you go back a second, Emily? So again, our passive training system, this is our long-term progression system, right? So what you just said about the Shadowbane combination, it might not surface some of those combinations until you unlock certain things within our passive skill tree.
That's true. That's true as well.
And as you saw with the saddle example, everybody is going to train that box in exploration basics because they want to ride faster mounts.
Right.
Right. So one of the things that we've done is we've started sprinkling some of these traits into our long-term progression. And once you've unlocked it for your entire account.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Right. So again, it reinforces that this is very important. It's not just 0.2 of a stat, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is actually a trait that allows you to do a new aspect of gameplay.
And one thing I will go ahead and say now, because I want to give everybody a heads up and warning, when we get this build to come out, we are going to be doing a full wipe. Like
Correct.
A full wipe, including passive training. All of that stuff's going to be wiped. So you have been warned that it is coming. So, cool.
Cool. And this one, what this slide shows right here is we now have nodes that we can now gate by requiring a % of the tree trained. Most things they have a line that they connect to. In the more advanced trees, we just have some of these nodes that do kind of cool things that we can sprinkle in, and it requires you to train 50% of the tree before you can hit that node. The mastery node on the lower right in every one of these trees will require you to train 95% of the tree to unlock that final box.
And I know there is one question that's been hanging out there, kind of the periphery for a while, which is, hey, you've been saying that you're going to at some point do a catch-up mechanic, or you're going to figure something out. That is still on the table. I do want to add an element of active, actually more than one way to actively play the game to be able to affect this table, so it's not purely driven on passive training. Passive training should be seen as an overall kind of benefit, so that I can continue to advance even when I have periods in my life when I can't play.
Yep.
But people who are actively playing, I don't want them permanently behind, so we're going to put some active things. I'd like to, I mean, we've talked about in the past doing skill tomes as a way to do that.
Yep.
We've also talked more recently about, as I do things in the game, have it randomly or at various spots increase some of these things based on that activity. So both of those options are on the table. They're not mutually exclusive, and I would like to do that. That is not in this build, though.
No,
that is something that will be coming and that we will do after we get this new stuff up, and we can then look at this. It just didn't make the cut ultimately, but we can look at what we've done here, and then that'll help inform that last design. So there are a few things that are still going to be coming in here between now and launch. This isn't the final build. It's just that this is the big one.
This is a good big polished pass from 2 years of learning.
Right, exactly.
Is based like we took some of the feedback, we moved a lot of the stats around, and we're like, there you go.
Well, we cut stuff, we added new stuff. I mean, it's good. Like I said, again, if you liked it before, I think you're going to love it now because it is a different game. This is as big a leap as we've ever made. Bigger than Hunger Dome, bigger than Big World, bigger than Siege Perilous. This is the biggest leap forward we've ever had. Yes, Miss Massey.
Pam and Tandre asked, does this mean every class and every promotion can wear any armor and weapon?
It does not mean that.
Not for weapons, no. For armor, there is a way, I believe, with everybody to get it.
No,
right?
we basically, based on your promotion specialization, is where we blinked the final armor that you could make. We didn't want to have, so for example, a good chunk of the swordsman who I brought up earlier, he sacrifices armor for that increased damage that he can do. Right? If he could just take away that.
But Knight can. So there is a promotion class. That's what I was asking.
Within every class,
within every class, there is
not
a way
within
to
every
get to
promotion.
Yeah, for sure. No, but that's part of the hard choice, right? That's kind of the whole point.
Right.
Is because of taking that away from him, we're going to actually make him more powerful in this other area.
Correct.
So that's a philosophy.
Yeah, if you could negate all of those, but you have to sacrifice this.
Yeah.
It's basically it becomes a math problem, and everybody figures out what's the best middleman, and then what's the best.
Yeah. So.
Okay, and Jaster asks, can I still train the mastery node whenever I want, or will I need to 100% the tree before mastery is unlocked?
No, we actually. So that was the thing, was we had been saying that we were going to do that. The tech is now actually in, and you will not be allowed to click on that node until you actually have trained whatever it says at the bottom of that tree.
So a change like that is funny to me because from a playability standpoint, pretty impactful, right? That's a big deal. That doesn't even qualify internally as one of those 12 mini pillars I was talking about. That's hey, by the way, we finally got this thing we've been waiting on forever. Great, we can actually finally fix the design. So that's why I think the game's going to be largely unrecognizable to you guys.
Right, because again, they could just go instantly train the mastery box in every one of these things.
For sure. Well, I mean, seasons, that's another, that's a pretty major
We haven't even talked about the visuals of the game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that is coming. You guys, it's going to be unrecognizable.
Yep.
So.
Okay, so let's go. Let's move on to the talent.
One more thing about training before we move on to that.
Okay, we're not allowed to move on.
Okay.
Okay.
You can't.
Okay. What you got, Val?
Gradishar asked, training in 5.11 will be what speed? Because it's been.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what we haven't talked
Yes,
about that.
thank you.
To finalize that. Well, it's
So-
not your question. It's a good question, Gratishar, not Val. Thanks for bringing it up. And Val, thank you for bringing it to our attention. So I actually don't think we've settled on that yet. We're probably going to need to. My gut would be we probably need to speed it up some. Otherwise, we don't get testing, right? It won't work.
But the downside is we don't get to see what it feels like at ground zero.
Yeah.
Right?
That's an excellent question and something that we need to talk about between now and then.
Yeah.
I do know we're going to be doing a wipe. That everybody here is in agreement on where we set that knob. Clearly, we have the knob. So where we set it, we'll see.
Yeah, and we can also try it differently on our different environments as well.
That's true. That's a
Right.
good point.
So if we
could
want to
put the
test acceleration
server-
on test,
we could
because it
put
has
the
its
test
own
server to be different than than the US EU server.
I do want to get some
The live
feeling of
servers.
what it's like to be what we think it's going to be.
Yeah,
at
that's
live.
true, too.
Right.
I'm with you.
There's a lot of value in
Though
that.
I will say that until we get these other kind of catch-up mechanic things in, that's going to fundamentally change the way it feels anyway. So any experimentation we get out of that right now is going to be a little off. So I'm tempted to say maybe that's when we need to do that experimentation. I don't know. There's a discussion that needs to happen here. So
Okay, let's move on to talents. So this is a zoomed out version of the Ranger talent tree. If they were to compare it to what's on live right now, there are some subtle differences. Fundamentally, the tree is the same shape. However, we had some new tech that came online that enabled us to do some cool things in this.
hooray for new tech.
Hooray for new tech. Could you go to the next? So you'll notice these octagon nodes. This is actually the promotion node now for, this is a Ranger becoming a Warden. And you'll notice that is the cost of this node is we now have the ability to set the cost to any number we want to. In this case, it's free. It's a zero cost node in the talent tree. And we have some other nodes that have different costs. We've also kind of started to put roles in there and given people a description of what they're going to get. Because before that, it was
Yeah,
like...
for sure. In general, that's an area that we've started. We haven't finished that yet, but in general, going through the UI and taking all these very obfuscated systems and attributes, like numerical attributes,
Right.
and explaining, okay, here's what this means, and here's how it's used to decide how much damage you do when you swing your sword.
Right.
That kind of stuff, we've always had, we got it in, but we kind of would move on to the next system. So now we're going back and starting to fill all those UIs
Right.
out. And some of them, you'll be able to very clearly tell the ones we've gotten to and the ones we have not. They're not all done, but the ones that we've gotten to look fantastic. The ones that we haven't look the way they looked before. So
Yeah, and again, you can look at this and you can see all the stuff you're getting. You can see there's actually a trait section in there for all of the things that you're going to get when you promote to this class, and just the general overview, which a lot of people are just like, well, here's a bunch of talent nodes. What does it mean?
Yeah.
Right? You've given me a name, but what is an Archdruid? What is a Warden, right? So again, giving you guys some explanation of what we at least think it's going to be, and then you guys can actually either prove us wrong or come up with something cooler. We're always listening on that. Let's go to the next node. So this shows the major discipline slots, and you'll notice that a major discipline slot now costs 5. The major disciplines are a extreme power gain for any of the classes, especially since passives are now active from all of them all the time. We explained that in a previous update, but that was the number that Mark and I settled on. Basically, how many points in a talent tree one of these major disciplines would be worth. You don't have to buy it. In fact, you could save those 5 points and spend them elsewhere within the talent tree. Again, a lot of this was kind of scoping. Now, right now, you guys can buy everything in a tree, basically. There's really only a couple boxes, like 2 or 3, that they can't buy because we were giving you too many points because we wanted you to test everything and we wanted to make sure it all worked. And then now we're going to kind of start scoping that back, so you have to make hard choices.
And I do like the idea that, you know, by taking this major discipline, I'm picking up other things like a feat. Like I'm picking up, hey, I can now do this thing that's totally, I can now do
Right.
archery. That's really cool. But you know what? I'm not as good as a baseline knight who decided to not do that.
Right.
It forces a choice. And I think that's pretty cool. So,
Yeah, hard choice. Designers, we're the happiest when players are just sitting there in anguish trying to figure out what
because
they're
they're
going to
like, oh my God, I want all the things. I
Right.
can't have all the things. By the way, welcome to our world as designers. That's also the way we feel. But yeah, I want all of these. All of these options are so good. And then that also leads to endless debates between what is
Correct.
the best combination of those hard choices,
Right.
which is really cool.
And right now, a lot of that, like, we do have some of that at the discipline level.
We've always been in that direction. There's no question
Right.
about that.
But
right?
now
We're
you're
already
really gonna feel it.
Even with our last build, we're probably further than almost any other game out there in terms of the
Right.
complexity of the different character builds you can make. This one, though, we're now going back and we're finally taking a little sandpaper to that and polishing it up.
We're polishing it up, and you're going to have those hard choices. And again, we love it when you guys have hard choices because it means we did our job, right? Hard choices are great.
Of course, we've got some questions now.
Yep,
Sure.
sounds great. Was that the last
Galvia-
slide? Was
No,
that
we still have more slides to go through.
okay.
Galvia said, are there any plans to make that variable if you want just parts of the discipline?
Not right now.
Yeah, so we did talk about it. We did
did.
talk about, so the eventual goal that I wanted us to get to was you slot in one of those rune stones and you get another tab, and that tab now has a little mini tree on it for that discipline, and you can now buy up and down in that mini tree. I don't know if we will get that before launch or not. I do think eventually we will put it in, and what we will likely do at that point is we'll have to do some little switcheroo on the backside where you'll still have your discipline, but you'll have to respec to get points to spend
Right.
to it or something like that. But I like the idea. I just, at some point here, I have to stop letting people add new stuff to this game, because when you add new stuff, you add new bugs, which means you add more time, and at some point I got to call it. And so the question is going to start being, and it already has started increasingly internally, to can you imagine this game being successful if we ship without that? And if the answer is yeah, we can be successful without it, great, then we should do that after launch. That's going to have to be, otherwise you never launch.
Right.
I mean, in MMO, we have MMOs that have been out for 15 years and they're still adding new features. It's not like we ever hit an end of the checklist. So you have to hit a point where you say, we are now done. We're going to go ahead and get this thing out the door. That's setting a whole new level of expectation in terms of persistence of the characters, in terms of the rewards we get out, in terms of what kind of customer support we give. At some point, you got to call it. And for us, that point is right around the corner.
Yep.
And coming in 2024, sure.
And since you alluded to it, we're never finished with an MMO.
No,
right?
of course not.
And the stuff that you generally see in a game's lifespan, its first expansion, is a lot of the stuff that they just didn't get to in
absolutely.
in their primary development. You guys have got to see that because you've walked through it with us. Also, we're going to have a whole bigger audience coming in with a lot more feedback.
Yep,
and
for
that's
sure.
and that's going to skew us
And
in different ways.
We're going to play it ourselves, and quite frankly, the game that we play at scale is not going to be the same game that we're playing now. I've
Right.
actually, this has been very challenging for me. Is you guys can tell we really want to make sure that y'all are having a good experience in the game, even though it's not done right now. And so a lot of times that comes back with feedback that I have to come back and question. Wait, before I make this change to the game, because I know that sucks right now. Is that just caused by the fact that we only have a few hundred people in at one time, right? Is that artificially causing this other balance mechanic to not kick in? And a lot of times the answer is yes. So don't address it, because if you address it and then more people come, you just have to pull out that thing. So that's it. We've been in kind of a weird spot. We'll get to start feeling that before launch, though, because we have 350,000 registered players. Probably it'll be more like 400,000 or 500,000 by the time we do launch, that we can start to dip into and flood into the system, and that'll give us more users to actually start testing things at scale.
And we'll find out things that we're not even thinking about.
Of course,
now.
absolutely.
And that's how it works.
But some of these pieces, like that skill tree for disciplines thing, we may actually have it halfway done at the time we launch, and it's just not checked in yet. That's just that some of those will have to be in flight, and we got to call it anyway. So.
Yep.
Okay, so before we move on from this,
Sure.
Death Cult Gaming asks, will you still be able to hit the end of the tree if you take 2 disciplines?
Well, yes. Yes.
You'll have your promotion tree, yes.
Yes. So one of the exercises I did when I was determining how many points you should get for the level experience was I played through this, wiped my thing, played through it. What if I do this? What if I do that? So I spent a good amount of time just playing through the talent tree as its own game to see what results I could come up with.
So that's an excellent question. I don't know this. I haven't asked you, so I'll just ask you live
Sure.
on the air in front of a studio audience. So does that mean that you can get to the end of the tree with both things, or does it mean you can get to the end of the tree with both things and fill out every single branch of thing to get there?
You can make it all the way to the end of the promotion class, buy all of the promotion class and the 2 majors, and perhaps one of the previous tier of 3. You can see it right there.
So the answer is you cannot have all the things.
You cannot have all the things.
That's there you go. And I think that is That is the correct answer.
Yeah,
So, good. I'm glad that is your answer. I mean, we have to move fast around here. I don't always get to, as much as I try and be involved in every conversation, I'm always not. So,
and hopefully we'll get some feedback on this in 5.1.10, and we may shave off a couple more points, or we may add a couple more points back in.
Yep.
I mean, ultimately, we always want our talent trees to have a lot of choice and a lot of hard choices.
and feel good.
Yep.
All
Okay,
right.
next slide, please, Emily. This is the final promotion node. This is where we give you a passive power, and we give you some other things. This was just to show that of the proficiency, your traits there, for example, the Warden, instead of having recurve bow proficiency, he now has recurve bow mastery. And that mastery will unlock the runic weapons that you are currently familiar with. And in the future, when we add new types of weaponry, it will probably require a mastery. Some weapons will require proficiency. It's just to show that we have different levels of the traits.
Yeah, for sure. I also think that I'm looking as we go through these things, we've found that sometimes hard choices are actually fun. And sometimes we found that just because the choice is there, it doesn't necessarily make it fun. That's what you found with passives.
Right.
Because I noticed on this one, for example, it talks about giving you a new passive power.
Correct.
Used to be you would have to go load that power out. But we actually decided that that wasn't as much fun as we thought
Correct.
it was. Because once I found my really good ones that I had, getting new ones was no longer a reward for me. Right? Unless they were so much better to kick one out. So that was a situation where we actually had more hard choice and we actually came back
Correct.
off of it a little bit just because we thought it was the right answer.
And on disciplines, what it meant ultimately, which is what kind of disappointed me, was the discipline passes, of which there's probably 1 to 2 on most of the disciplines. Nobody was using them.
Right.
And I hate making stuff that nobody uses.
Yeah, that sucks.
Right,
That sucks.
and because it also means that people figure out which is the absolute best.
Yeah.
And since you only have 3 slots for passives,
And I mean, we could have
it's just-
increased the number of passive slots, but now we've added more management overhead. And so it just ultimately on that one, when we look at it, you look at it from all angles, including like, what's the UI? What's the
Right.
learning curve? Is this really worth the payoff? Sometimes it's not. And that one we decided it was not. So
yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah. Cool. Any more slides? Are we done?
We have a couple more slides. Okay, so
good,
this is
good, good.
the
Oh, hey, cool. Yeah, the proficiencies, talents,
Traits.
talents and traits tab. So
So each of these describes currently what this character has. This is a brand new level 1 half elf ranger that I did. I cut out everything else because I don't want everyone to see all the other new stuff yet. This is the brand new tab. On live, they only have the first 3. Each of these will have a kind of cool description for them. Working on those right now, and they will unlock other ones. But basically, the big message here is we've gone from a class-based restriction system to a trait-based one. And you can earn those traits in many ways.
yeah, it's still class-based, but now underneath the covers,
Yeah.
we have the ability to toggle switches on and off, which we didn't have before. It was all hard-coded.
And with the way that we've kind of quadrupled down on our adjective system, which is a mechanical thing,
Well, and
we can temporarily even add
the
things.
funny thing is, it's the kind of thing that's very inside baseball. Like, we say it, and underneath the covers, it's a really important thing. To you guys, it seems like it doesn't matter. Where it comes out, though, is over time, as we come up with new ideas and find that we can easily implement those ideas and quickly get them out to you, that's where the benefit comes out. So this is one of those things where super exciting to us, probably exciting. Some of you will be like, oh, that's pretty cool because you happen to, kind of dabble in game design quite a bit, but some of you don't care. So
Yeah.
Here's why you should care, is because it gives us the ability to actually add more variation to our classes and our disciplines going forward into launch. And that, to me, that's really exciting.
And with the stuff Steve gave us, dynamically on the fly,
Adding stuff,
based
absolutely.
on a building, all of a sudden you can now equip something else.
Right,
That's just,
so I can drop a particular type of statue in my town, and that statue now, everyone who is a part of my guild, because we own this town, we all get this benefit. That's something that we can do now using this system.
yeah. So
Coolster wants to know, will advantages and disadvantages also use this trait system?
It will. So that's another one that to me is on the line of,
Yeah.
of I really want to get it done, but I also want to get it done right. We've planned on it from the beginning. I don't know where it's going to fall. So we'll find out. I'll get it to you eventually, but at some point here I have to call it, or we won't actually get this game shipped. We've got the resources we need to get this game out the door, which is fantastic, as long as we don't screw it up and decide to shove a whole bunch more stuff in the suitcase. So I have to be very judicious. That said, I will be adding a few things because we'll find out when we play that they are necessary.
yeah. That's kind of what we're holding a little bit of reserve for,
That's
which
right.
is we know things are going to need to shift.
And
after you
does
play.
that mean that'll be one of them, or the other one we mentioned a couple minutes ago? Will the discipline trees? Will that end up being one of them? Maybe. I don't know. We'll get in and we'll play and we'll make that call the way we always have.
Yep.
But I'm going to have to start being more judicious. And that does mean that I recognize some people will be disappointed. We will have some people who will post on the thing. The only reason I backed this game in the first place is because you were going to have disciplined branches. And, I'm not even making fun. That may actually be the case. It may be that they're an old school Shadowmane player and they're like, that one particular feature, if it's not for that, I don't think the whole thing's going to work. Ultimately, I have to do the right call for what I think is best for the game and the community as a whole. So all I can say is I do intend to do all of the things eventually if we can, but getting a game out, making it good and making it successful is what opens the door for us to be able to do those things for the next 5, 10, 15 years. So I think that you're going to find this next milestone is overwhelmingly positive. I also think that there will probably be a couple pet features that you're like, ooh, I really want that, and some of them will make it, and some of them won't, and that's the same for all of us, too. I want all the things. We're not always going to get all the things, but now I can tell you you're going to get a lot of them, a hell of a lot of them. So
Okay, so the big questions that everybody is asking.
don't even ask because don't put me on the spot. I'm not telling you things on purpose because Cece's told me not to. So the big questions, if I haven't asked it, there's a reason, so I'm not going to ask it. I'm plugging my ears.
There you go.
Sorry, we're trying to actually build. We have a marketing budget now, guys. I want to actually market this stuff, and I can't just reveal it all every time. And not to mention the questions that they're also going to answer, the things that are like, hey, let me ask about this one thing that I'm going to be really unhappy about. When you're not willing to talk about all the cool stuff I am happy about,
No,
which
these
means
aren't specifics about the game.
I don't believe you, Val. I don't believe you. So I'm just
Next
gonna
slide.
say- So check
Here you
your
go, folks.
check
I'm
your
sorry.
question with Cece, and if she's okay with it, then you can ask me. The ones you've done so far are all fine.
Yeah,
I'm just if there are big, high-level questions that I have not talked about, it's not on accident. It's because I want to have a chance to actually present my case for, hey, guys, here's a choice I made. Some of you are going to love it, some of you are going to hate it, and here's why. That's one of them, for sure. I'm not talking about that yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard some discussion before we started about a potential answer for
Nope.
that.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So this is showing a trait on an actual item. So this is what you're going to see now. And you'll see that, as Todd alluded to before, Armorsmith is the trait that's required.
And I heard he had an answer.
So what you're going to need to do in this case is you're going to have to be an Armorsmith if you want to equip this item. There you go.
It's funny. We have a little monitor over here, so if we're staring off into the bottom of the screen, now you guys know why.
Yeah,
'Cause we're looking at the same thing.
We
you
can
are.
actually see it. It's actually neat. Technology.
Wait, I swear it should be like under here or over there. Or, I don't know. We should figure that
You'll
out.
also notice that there's no tooltip UI element. There's all kinds of framing elements coming in on this stuff.
Oh yeah, the UI looks so much better.
It
in
looks
this
so
one.
much cleaner.
Looks so much better, and it's surprising also what a difference that makes, right? Like just little things like now, yeah, in the previous version, right? If I had a sword that was, green in quality, there was no backing behind it.
Correct.
To show me that it was green in quality, I had to mouse over it. And now that's such a minor, trivial thing, but it finally turned on, and the UI looks so much better and reads so much better as a result. Little things like that make a huge, huge difference.
Yeah.
And there's a mountain of those. That's actually what takes all the time in MMO development, I'm convinced.
Yeah.
It's not, if you're moving a mountain and it's not the boulders everybody knows about and they get a lot of attention. It's moving the mountain a spoonful of pebbles at a time.
That trait page, just to give you guys an example, that trait page took myself, our primary UI lead, and an engineer a solid week of just getting that thing to do what we want it to do.
Yep.
Right? To make it look good, to have icons up there, to have categories, to have descriptions in there.
Oh, look at that. I described it, and there it is.
And there it is. And so these things, they just add up. They just chew away at your time.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like you could just put a flat list in there and be done with it, but that doesn't look good, right? And you're like, okay, I want it to have a description. Well, all of a sudden, that's another half-a-day feature I need to buy off.
Yep.
Right?
For sure.
So tuning this stuff does take a considerable amount of time. And the example right here is, hey, here's a trait that requires swift saddles for this particular thing. I clearly have it, so it's white, and I can equip this thing. So there you go.
Pretty cool.
So you're going to see that on all the items that require things, and I think it's going to add a lot to the game.
Oh, I've got one that I'll talk about, which is really cool. So I'll talk about Outpost.
Okay.
So, because this is kind of neat. So historically, we've had Outposts in the game, right? And there were basically two types. There were a campfire outpost, and there were guard tower outpost. And just in this last version, I think went live. I know it's certainly internally testable, is we put out a new type of outpost. It's a respawn outpost.
Correct.
So if you take it, then your team members can now fly as a crow here and you can respawn. So what we're trying to do now is make sure that all of the outposts have an in-game purpose. So every outpost you take. So a couple
Correct.
changes that are coming. The guard posts are now moving to be along the roads. So when I have a caravan and I'm running down the roads, if I own those guard towers, those guards will actually protect me in my caravan. So now they have a purpose. The respawn one is in. That's a great one. The one that was just a campfire originally that had no purpose, that one's going to go away, or it'll be turned into something like, well, this is a crafting station or something
Correct.
like that. We're adding one now for banking, so there will be a banking outpost, which implies that I need to go somewhere for banking. So that'll be a very popular thing for me to just drop on you guys, is that now that's a thing that
Right.
has value because I can actually go and take it in bank. And I think there's even one or two more. Like there are a handful more, actually, now that I think about it.
The shrines.
Yeah, there's variations of God shrines, which is really cool. So that's really cool. So now that actually means that when I'm taking this thing, I'm actually getting a benefit for it. And it ties into the strategy game. I may be taking it on purpose because I want to go siege that fort, and this is going to give me a fallback location to come back and respawn. So anyway, so
No.
there you go. There's a little freebie for you.
I would just restate that what you said at the beginning, in case people were late, that we don't know when any of this is going to go on test, right?
Yeah,
It's
I
not
can
that we have
I can
to
talk
take
in
out
general terms, but so here's the
We
thing,
honestly don't
is I'm still not I'm not gonna we don't have a publisher, we're not going retail, so I don't have to have a date, and I want to make this good. We have the money now to make it good. That may take a little more time, it may take a little less time. I can see the end in sight. I can see where we're going. So we are in the middle. The process is we've got to actually finish this build, and we're working on that right now. We get it done. It's not done yet. Then we transition into polish and bug fixing. Historically, that has usually taken us about a week for every month of development. But will it turn out that way? I don't know. That's usually been about the case. We have to get all the polish and integration and bug fixing done. Then it will go out to test. As soon as it goes from test, it'll go to live. And then that will be, at some point in that process, we will call alpha. We'll call it alpha. And then when we get it live and it's actually stable enough, we start inviting in waves and waves of our registered players. That's when we'll call it beta. So there you go. There, without giving dates, which
We will let these people know as soon as we know.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, so I even like the fundraising. You guys are the first. So the team finds out first, and then you guys are next. I try and share everything with you, but I can't, I don't want to get into trouble. I mean, I did a tweet earlier this week, and it turned into a news story, right? So I just have to be careful what I say, because it's not just about you guys. You guys are very forgiving with us. The public at large is not forgiving of anyone on the internet. I'm not forgiving of anyone on the internet, so I don't know why they should be. So just, be patient with me. I try and give you everything I can, but I can't always give you everything you want. So there you go.
There you go.
So, all right. So anyway, is there anything else, or is that good? Does that cover it? Y'all all right?
Yeah.
Is that a good answer as I can give you, Val?
Yeah, that's what I had expected to hear. So yeah.
All right.
That's
Sounds
what
good.
I expected. It's not what they wanted to hear, but I knew.
Well, I
'cause-
know. Everybody wants to say, and it's going to be next Thursday at noon. And now I guarantee you somebody out there is going to hold me to it's next Thursday
They just
at
took a
noon.
soundbite of just right that.
Right.
Yeah, right, for sure.
Thursday
Okay, so
noon.
then we're just going to run through the stuff here at the end.
Not always easy.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I just want to run through everything at the end. I do want to thank you guys. I know you've been incredibly patient with us, and you show up for all the testing, and you've given us so much feedback. I mean, I can't imagine what this game would have been like without your feedback, but I know it would have been a lot worse. I mean, hell, it probably would have been the same combat model we started with at the beginning of Hunger Dome, right? So you guys have been instrumental in building this game with us. So thank you for all participating in the campaigns that just ended.
I do have one more thing.
You do?
So Blair had told me earlier before we were on camera that he was in Dicey's stream last night.
Yep.
Unbeknownst to Dicey at first. See, you never know when we're watching.
The
Um,
devs
Blair
are
is always
I'm
watching.
always watching.
And that you had offered to answer one question for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because a lot of people have been asking about guild banks, I know that's one of the things we're not talking about, so I didn't ask the question, but somebody mentioned that that's what you were talking about in Dicey's stream last night. So will you share that? Since
Sure. Yeah.
everybody-
It was funny because he was like, "Hey, I'm bummed out. I'm not going to make the stream tomorrow. I never get to ask my questions." And I just piped into chat. I'm here right now. I'll answer a bonus question for you.
Okay, that's cool.
He's
All
like,
right.
"Whoa."
That sounds great.
Right. So and the question was about guild banks.
And the question was, how'd you get so handsome?
yeah. Where'd you get
How'd
that
you-
curl from?
Where'd you get so
Somebody
pretty
did say
eyes?
you look pretty today.
Who did?
I can't remember. I'd have to
So
follow
said that
up.
I look pretty.
Yeah.
Oh, I got
Well,
a fan. One fan.
There you go. You're one
Was
fan.
it my wife? It's probably my wife. Actually, it probably wasn't my wife.
Does she watch this?
Oh, yeah, no. She has no interest in watching. She has to listen to me every day. She doesn't want more of that. Can you imagine living with me? It's the worst.
Oh, I'm
See,
just-
terrible.
Yeah,
right? Can you imagine?
I just imagine again.
Yeah, it's the
Anyways,
worst.
and it had to deal with there was a question about guild banks and there was a question about repairing structures. How does repair work in the siege mechanic?
Yep, we do have a repair in the siege mechanic, so there's that, right?
Correct. After the siege window ends, everything that is damaged will auto repair. Anything that's destroyed, you will need to rebuild.
You have to rebuild.
You
right?
have to rebuild, and that's our current rules. That one was pretty cut and dry. The other one was about guild banks, and I said we just didn't have it in 5.1.10.
We don't. We do have some storage, though, coming. There are some storage advantages coming in this, if I recall correctly. But guild banks specifically did not make the cut.
Correct.
Just yet. But that is one that I know we have to get it done by launch. It's
Right.
not a question. It's just we didn't get to it.
So if they could see it through our eyes, how important guild banks was, everything else was more important than that because we
Well,
hear you.
And there's underlying tech, right? Like there's sometimes
from a
it's-
tech standpoint.
Sometimes there's like, hey, we need to do this, this, and this before we can get to that. And on that one, it was just, I mean, because I actually tried to get them in working in the EKs. I was like, all right, well, just stick some chests inside the buildings because at least those will persist, right? Right up until the server reboots, which
Right.
in an EK is like in an hour. So no, was the answer. It didn't work, and I went back and it wasn't easy. So I do know that one's one we're gonna have to get to, and I have tried to find other ways to address the problem in this build, so that while it's not the ultimate solution, it's an solution that is better than having to store stuff on corpses and relog
Right.
in to make new corpses every 24
I
hours.
like to think of like movie Alien.
Yep.
So you know when they crash and then the bridge is calling down to engineering and they're like, "Hey, how long is this going to take to fix?" And he's like 18 hours and the guy's like 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's like that's us asking for things all the time, right? We have to ask another department and they only have so much time.
So here's the thing. So I don't have in this version. I tell you that I will do the best I can to try and take care of the problem to make it not so aggravating in this version. How's that? That's kind of the best I can do.
Yeah. I mean, and clearly we will get to it.
Yeah, of course we have to.
Right?
We
It's
have
so
to.
high on our list. Like it's just there were other things in 5.1.10. Dregs
Yeah.
was so much more important.
Yep.
There you go.
So it was Beezra who said that you look pretty.
Okay.
So not your wife.
Okay. Nice.
And then, again, Coolster wants to know what you think about Rise of Skywalker. So maybe you guys.
Do you want to tell the holiday story?
No,
Okay.
I don't. No,
Yeah.
that's inside baseball. There were mixed reviews internally. I liked it a lot. So some people did not. Some people can't just enjoy Star Wars.
No, I enjoyed. That's why I gave it the rating I gave.
Okay.
Because I do enjoy lightsabers and flying, but all of the other stuff.
Okay. No, we could spend another hour on that. I will say, though, we have a very strong cadre of Baby Yoda fans internally inside the building
Yes.
right now. Everybody here
I
is
think
hooked on Mandalorian.
The whole world, right? They just
No, for
everyone
sure.
loves. the
Everybody's
Mandalorian.
Baby Yoda crazy.
Right.
All right, so I think that's probably it for January.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody for coming. You guys are awesome. Keep the questions flowing. Thanks for being patient with me. I know I'd love to be like, and the amount of the fundraising was this, but sometimes I got to hold some of those things back. You'll find out all that and more soon enough. So. In the meantime, don't forget to keep putting those war stories up and tag them with the hashtag war stories so we can bring them up here and put them out on social media and help make you famous. That'll get cooler and cooler once we actually have guild support in, right? Because then it'll actually be very specific to this guild did this and look at the result. So otherwise, I think that is it. We will get back to work on trying to get this thing out to you as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I can't wait. Again, the stuff's coming together nicely, especially on the system side. It's looking so much better
here's
than
to
the
a
past.
fantastic 2020.
Yeah,
this is going to be great.
You made a comment about, hey, it looks like a game now in a
for
demo
sure.
earlier in the week, and
Yeah.
it's just a lot of these pieces are just coming together, and it's great because it means we get a lot of design iteration on the content, which is what you guys are concerned about, and less worried about architecture and things like that. So
Cool.
there you go.
All
So
right.
can't wait to see you in 2020, and that's it.
Thanks, guys.